3 German shepherds was crying from an empty water tank. What baby did next? Left everyone in tears. What happened that morning changed everything. A 5-year-old boy heard something that would lead to the most unbelievable rescue anyone had ever witnessed. Before we begin, hit that like button, share this story with someone who loves animals, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The crying started at 5:47 in the morning. Tommy Martinez knew the exact time because the red numbers on his dinosaur clock glowed in the darkness of his room. The sound wasn't like anything he'd heard before, not the neighbor's cat, not the birds that usually chirped outside his window. This was different. This was desperate. He sat up in his small bed, pushing aside his favorite blue blanket. The crying came again. 3 distinct voices, all whimpering together, then stopping, then starting again like they were calling for help. Tommy's bare feet touched the cold floor. His parents were still asleep. He could hear his father snoring from down the hall. "Someone's sad," Tommy whispered to his stuffed bear, "Mr. Buttons." He picked up the bear and held it close. The crying continued, pulling at something deep in his chest. It made his eyes water, even though he wasn't the one who was sad. He tiptoed to his window and pressed his small nose against the glass. The sun wasn't up yet, but the sky had that purple color that meant morning was coming soon. The abandoned farm next door looked scary in the almost dark. Nobody had lived there for 2 years. His mother always told him never to go there. She said it was dangerous. Old buildings could fall down. There might be broken glass. But the crying was coming from there. Tommy opened his bedroom door slowly. It creaked a little, and he froze. His father's snoring stopped for a second, then started again. He crept down the hallway, past his parents' room, past the bathroom with the nightlight shaped like a fish, down the stairs that he knew exactly which ones made noise and which ones didn't. The kitchen was dark except for the light on the microwave that said 5:52. Tommy could still hear the crying through the walls. It was louder now, more urgent, like whoever was making those sounds was running out of time. He reached for the back door handle. It was high up, and he had to stand on his tiptoes. The door opened with a soft click. Cool morning air rushed in, making him shiver in his dinosaur pajamas. The crying was much clearer now. 3 voices, definitely dogs, but not normal dog sounds. These were sounds of fear. Tommy looked back at the stairs. He should wake up his parents. That's what good boys did. But last week, when he told them about the bird with the broken wing, they said he was imagining things. The bird was fine, they said. Even though Tommy knew it wasn't. Even though he could feel its pain in his own chest. He stepped outside. The grass was wet with dew, cold between his toes. The abandoned farm's fence had a hole in it where the wood had rotted away. Tommy had seen it before, but never thought about going through. Now, he didn't think twice. He squeezed through, his pajama top catching on a nail. It tore a little, but he didn't care. The crying was coming from behind the old barn. Tommy's heart was beating so fast, it felt like it might jump out of his chest. The abandoned farm looked different in the purple morning light. Shadows moved in ways that made him want to run back home. But the crying pulled him forward. He turned the corner of the barn and stopped. There was a large concrete circle in the ground, about as wide as his bedroom. It was an old water tank, the kind farmers used for their animals. Tommy had to get closer to see inside. What he saw made him gasp. 3 German shepherds were at the bottom of the tank. The walls were straight up and down, smooth concrete, at least 12 feet deep. The dogs looked up at him, their eyes reflecting the dim light. They stopped crying for a moment, staring at this small boy who had appeared above them like an angel. "Oh no," Tommy breathed. His voice was tiny in the morning quiet. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." The biggest dog, a male with a black and tan coat, stood on his hind legs, trying to reach up the wall. His paws scraped against the concrete, and Tommy could see dark marks on the walls. Blood. They'd been trying to climb out. For how long? Their paws were raw and bleeding. "Don't worry," Tommy called down, his voice shaking. "I'll help you. I promise I'll help you." The dogs started whimpering again, but differently now. Like they understood. Like they had hope. Tommy looked around frantically. He needed something, anything. A ladder, a rope, something to get them out. But the barn was locked with a rusty padlock. The area around the tank was empty except for some old wooden planks and rusty farm equipment. He ran back to the edge of the tank. The dogs were pacing now, looking up at him. One of them, a female with a lighter coat, was limping. The third dog, smaller than the others, was lying on its side, panting hard. "I'll be right back," Tommy promised. "Don't give up. Please don't give up." He ran back through the fence, across his yard, and burst through the back door. His mother, Rosa, was in the kitchen now, making coffee. She jumped when she saw him. "Tommy! What are you doing outside? And look at your pajamas. They're all wet and... Is that a tear?" "Mama, there's dogs." Tommy grabbed her hand, pulling. "3 dogs in the hole. They can't get out. They're crying." Rosa sighed. That tired sigh she did when she thought Tommy was making up stories. "Honey, we talked about this. You can't just... They're real. They're in the water tank at the old farm. Their paws are bleeding. Tommy, you know you're not supposed to go there. It's dangerous." "But Mama, they'll die." Rosa knelt down, taking his small face in her hands. "Tommy, baby, sometimes you think you hear things that aren't really there. Remember the bird? The bird was hurt. And these dogs are real. Please, Mama, please." But Rosa was already shaking her head. "Go wash up for breakfast. Daddy will be down soon." Tommy felt tears burning his eyes. Real tears, not the kind you could fake. "You never believed me," he whispered. He turned and ran back upstairs, but not to wash up. He went to his room and grabbed his piggy bank. He'd been saving for a new video game, but that didn't matter now. He emptied the coins and bills into his backpack. Then he grabbed his water bottle from yesterday's lunchbox. It was only half full, but it was something. Back downstairs, he could hear his parents talking in the kitchen. His father Miguel's deep voice mixed with his mother's softer one. They were probably talking about him, about his imagination. Tommy slipped out the front door this time. The sun was coming up now, painting the sky orange and pink. The abandoned farm looked less scary, but more sad in the morning light. Tommy squeezed through the fence again and ran to the tank. The dogs heard him coming and started crying louder. "I'm back," he called down. "I brought water." But how could he get it to them? The bottle would break if he dropped it. He looked around again and spotted an old bucket with a rope tied to its handle. The rope was frayed and dirty, but it might work. Tommy tied his water bottle to the rope and slowly lowered it down. The biggest dog understood immediately. He bit the bottle gently, and Tommy let go of the rope. The dog carried it to the smallest one first, biting holes in the plastic so water spilled out. The small dog licked at the water desperately. "Good boy," Tommy whispered. Good boy." But half a water bottle wouldn't save them. They needed more. They needed food. They needed to get out. Tommy heard a car door slam. He peeked around the barn and saw his parents' car pulling out of the driveway. They were both going to work. They hadn't even checked on him. Probably thought he was in his room sulking. He ran back home and filled every container he could find with water. His mother's mixing bowls, empty milk jugs, even his father's coffee thermos. He made trip after trip, lowering water down to the dogs. They drank and drank, their tails starting to wag just a little. On his 5th trip, Tommy noticed something on the biggest dog's collar, a metal tag that caught the morning sunlight. He squinted, trying to read it. There were letters and numbers stamped into the metal. "K9 unit," Tommy read out loud. He didn't know what that meant exactly, but he'd seen police dogs on TV. These weren't just any dogs. These were special dogs. Important dogs. He looked around the area more carefully now. There were tire tracks in the dried mud, deep ones like from a big truck. They led from the road, past the tank, and into the woods behind the farm. Tommy followed them, his heart pounding again. About 50 feet into the woods, hidden by overgrown bushes, was a van. It was turned on its side, the front smashed against a large oak tree. The back doors were open, and Tommy could see 3 empty cages inside, the kind of cages used to transport dogs. "Oh," Tommy breathed, understanding flooding through him. There had been an accident. The dogs got out of the van, but fell into the tank. But where was the driver? He looked closer at the van. There was writing on the side, but it was hard to read because of the damage. "Itery working due. Trans ... military." These were military dogs. Tommy heard a sound, not from the tank, but from deeper in the woods. A low moan, human this time. He followed the sound, pushing through bushes that scratched at his arms. About 20 feet from the van, down in a small ravine, was a man in a uniform. He was lying very still, his leg bent at a wrong angle. Tommy scrambled down the ravine, sliding on loose dirt and leaves. The man's eyes were closed, his face pale. There was dried blood on his forehead. "Mister?" Tommy touched the man's shoulder gently. "Mister, wake up." The man's eyes fluttered open. They were blue, like the sky, but clouded with pain. "The dogs," he whispered. His voice was rough, like he hadn't had water in a long time. "Where are my dogs?" "They're in the water tank," Tommy said. "They're stuck, but they're alive." The man tried to sit up and cried out in pain. "How long? What day is it?" Tommy thought hard. Thursday morning. 3 days, the man whispered. "They've been 3 days. His eyes filled with tears. "Max, Luna, Scout, my dogs, have to save them." "I'm trying," Tommy said, "but I'm too small. I can't reach them." The man's hand grabbed Tommy's arm. His grip was weak but desperate. "Please, they're heroes. They saved so many lives. Afghanistan, Iraq. They don't deserve to die like this." "I won't let them die," Tommy promised. And he meant it, even if he was only 5, even if nobody believed him. He would save those dogs. The man's eyes closed again. He was still breathing, but Tommy could tell he was really hurt. He needed a doctor. The dogs needed to get out of the tank. Tommy needed help, but nobody would believe him. Nobody ever believed him. He climbed out of the ravine and ran back to the tank. The dogs, Max, Luna, and Scout. He knew their names now, looked up at him hopefully. The smallest one, Scout, was standing now, which made Tommy feel a little better. "Your friend is hurt," Tommy told them, "but he's alive. I'm going to save all of you." Max, the biggest one, made a sound that wasn't quite a bark. It was more like he was trying to talk, trying to say thank you. Tommy felt that familiar feeling in his chest, the one that told him when animals were trying to communicate. Max was the leader. Luna was the mother figure. Scout was young, maybe not fully grown yet. Tommy ran back home one more time. He grabbed the phone and dialed 911, but when the operator answered, his voice froze. What would he say? That he found military dogs in a tank and a hurt soldier in the woods? They'd think he was playing. They'd call his parents. His parents would be angry that he went to the abandoned farm. "Hello? Is anyone there?" the operator asked. Tommy hung up. He stood in the kitchen, tears running down his face. He was just a little boy. Nobody listened to little boys. But those dogs were counting on him. That soldier was counting on him. He wiped his nose with his sleeve and looked around the kitchen. His eyes landed on his father's tool closet. His father had rope in there, strong rope from his construction job. Tommy wasn't supposed to touch his father's tools, but this was an emergency. He dragged the rope outside. It was heavy, much heavier than he expected. By the time he got it to the tank, his arms were shaking. The sun was fully up now, hot on his back. He'd been working for hours. No breakfast, no rest, just trying to save these dogs. "Okay," he said to himself. "Think, Tommy. Think." He remembered a TV show where rescuers made a pulley system. He didn't really understand how it worked, but he remembered they wrapped rope around a tree branch to make lifting easier. There was a big tree near the tank with a branch that hung over the edge. Tommy threw the rope over the branch. It took him 7 tries. His arms felt like jelly. But finally, the rope was over. Now what? He couldn't lift the dogs. He wasn't strong enough. He tied one end of the rope to an old tractor tire, making a kind of seat. Maybe if he could lower it down, one of the dogs could sit in it, and then what? He still couldn't pull them up. "This isn't working," he said, his voice cracking. He was so tired, so frustrated. The dogs were depending on him, and he was failing. Luna whimpered from the bottom of the tank. She was looking at him with such trust, such hope. Like she knew he wouldn't give up. Like she believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. Mrs. Chen, Tommy suddenly remembered. His elderly neighbor was always home. She lived 2 houses down. Maybe she would believe him. Maybe because she was old, she would understand that sometimes kids knew things adults didn't. He ran to Mrs. Chen's house and knocked on her door. Knocked and knocked until his knuckles hurt. "My goodness, who's making all that racket?" Mrs. Chen opened the door, her gray hair in curlers. "Tommy? What are you doing here? Where are your parents?" Chen, please, you have to help me. There's 3 dogs stuck in the water tank at the old farm, and a hurt soldier in the woods, and nobody believes me, but it's real. I promise it's real." Mrs. Chen frowned. "Slow down, child. What are you talking about?" Tommy grabbed her hand. Her skin was soft and wrinkled, and she smelled like flowers. "Please, just come look. Please, they're going to die if we don't help them." "Tommy, I'm not walking to that old farm." "My hip." "Then call someone. Call the police. Call anyone. Your parents? They don't believe me. They never believe me. But I'm not lying, Mrs. Chen. There's 3 military dogs named Max and Luna and Scout, and they've been in that tank for 3 days, and their handler is hurt in the woods, and I can't save them by myself because I'm too small." Something in Tommy's voice, maybe the way it broke on the word small, made Mrs. Chen look at him more carefully. His pajamas were torn and dirty. His face was streaked with tears and dirt. His hands were red and raw from handling the rope. "You really did find something, didn't you?" she said softly. Yes, please, Mrs. Chen, please," she sighed. "Let me get my phone." But when she called the police, they said they'd send someone when they could. There had been a big accident on the highway. All units were busy, maybe in a few hours. "A few hours might be too late," Tommy said. He was sitting on Mrs. Chen's porch step now, his head in his hands. "Scout is really weak, and the soldier, he might die." Mrs. Chen sat down beside him, which took her a while because of her hip. "Show me," she said finally. "I can't walk fast, but show me these dogs." Tommy jumped up, hope flooding through him again. He helped Mrs. Chen walk slowly to the abandoned farm. When she saw the dogs in the tank, she gasped. "Oh my Lord," she breathed. "You were telling the truth." "I always tell the truth about animals," Tommy said. "I just know things sometimes. Like, I knew my goldfish was sick before he died, and I knew when the neighbor's cat was stuck in the drain pipe, and I know these dogs are special. They're heroes, Mrs. Chen." The soldier said they saved lives. Mrs. Chen was already dialing her phone again. This time she called her son, who was a firefighter. Then she called her neighbor, who was a nurse. Then she called the local news station. "You keep those dogs calm," she told Tommy. "Help is coming." Real help this time. Tommy ran back to the tank. "Help is coming," he told the dogs. "Real help. Just hold on a little longer." Max barked once, a strong bark despite everything. Luna's tail wagged weakly. Scout lifted his head, but Tommy couldn't just wait. The soldier was still in the ravine, hurt and alone. He ran back to the woods, sliding down into the ravine again. "Mister?" "Sergeant?" Tommy had noticed the stripes on his uniform. "Help is coming." The fire department and everyone. The man's eyes opened again. "The dogs? They're okay?" "Tired and hurt, but okay." "What's your name?" "James," the man whispered. "Sergeant James Walker, my dogs. They're all I have left. Lost my unit, lost my brothers, can't lose them too." "You won't," Tommy promised. "I won't let you." He heard sirens in the distance. Finally, adults who would know what to do. But Tommy didn't leave Sergeant Walker's side. He held the man's hand, talking about anything he could think of. About his school, about his stuffed bear, mister. Buttons, about how he wanted to be a veterinarian. When he grew up, so he could help animals. "You're a good boy," Sergeant Walker whispered. "Brave boy. Like my dogs. Brave." The sirens got louder. Tommy could hear voices now. Mrs. Chen directing people. "The boy is in the woods with the injured soldier. The dogs are in the tank." Soon the ravine was full of firefighters and paramedics. They put Sergeant Walker on a special board and carefully lifted him out. He kept asking about his dogs, and Tommy kept promising they would be saved. Tommy followed them back to the tank where more firefighters were setting up equipment. Real equipment, not just rope and hope. They had a special ladder that extended down into the tank. A firefighter in full gear climbed down. "Easy, puppies," the firefighter said gently. "We're going to get you out of there." One by one, the dogs were brought up. Scout first, because he was the weakest. Then Luna. Then Max. Each dog was immediately wrapped in blankets and given water and food, but they all looked around frantically, searching. "They want Sergeant Walker," Tommy told the firefighters. "He's their person." The paramedics were loading Sergeant Walker into an ambulance, but they stopped when they saw the dogs. "Bring them over," one said. "Quickly." Max, despite his exhaustion, pulled against the firefighter holding his leash, trying to get to the ambulance. Luna was crying, not the scared crying from before, but desperate, loving crying. Scout, even though he could barely stand, was trying to crawl toward his handler. "My boys," Sergeant Walker said from the stretcher. His voice was stronger now that he'd had some water. "My good boys, and girl. My Luna girl?" The paramedics let each dog briefly touch their nose to Sergeant Walker's hand before they had to take him to the hospital. The dogs would go to the emergency vet. But they were all alive, all saved. "This is your doing, isn't it?" A firefighter knelt beside Tommy. "You found them?" Tommy nodded, suddenly shy with all these adults around. "How long were you trying to help them by yourself?" "Since 5:47 this morning," Tommy said. "I heard them crying." The firefighter looked at his watch. It was almost noon. "You've been trying to save them for 6 hours? By yourself?" "Nobody believed me at first," Tommy said quietly. "But I couldn't leave them. They needed help." A news van pulled up, and a reporter jumped out with a camera person. They started filming everything, the dogs being loaded into the animal rescue van, the abandoned farm, the tank that had been a prison. "Can we talk to the boy who found them?" the reporter asked. But Tommy was walking toward the animal rescue van. Luna was looking at him through the window, her tail wagging despite everything she'd been through. Tommy put his hand on the glass, and Luna put her paw up on the other side. "You're safe now," Tommy whispered. "All of you are safe." Mrs. Chen appeared beside him, putting her wrinkled hand on his shoulder. "You did a good thing today, Tommy. A very good thing." "I just did what anyone would do," Tommy said. "No," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Not anyone. You did what you did because you have a gift. You understand things others don't. You hear things others can't. Don't let anyone make you think that's not special." Tommy's parents arrived then, their car screeching to a stop. Rosa jumped out, running toward Tommy. "Tommy! Oh my God, Tommy! We saw the news at work. Are you okay? Are you hurt?" She pulled him into a tight hug, and Tommy finally let himself cry. Really cry. All the fear and frustration and desperation of the morning came out in huge, gulping sobs. "I tried to tell you," he said into his mother's shirt. "I tried, but you didn't believe me." "I'm sorry," Rosa said, and she was crying too. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have listened. I should have believed you." Miguel wrapped his arms around both of them. "You saved them, son. You saved all of them. We're so proud of you." But Tommy wasn't thinking about being proud. He was thinking about Sergeant Walker in the ambulance, probably wondering if his dogs were okay. He was thinking about Max, Luna, and Scout, probably scared in the rescue van, wondering where their person was. "Can we go to the hospital?" Tommy asked. "And then the vet? They need to know everyone's okay. They need to know they're all going to be together again." Rosa looked at Miguel, who nodded. "Of course," she said. "Of course we can." As they walked to their car, the reporter tried to stop them for an interview, but Miguel waved her away. "Maybe later," he said. "Right now, our son needs to check on his friends." Friends. That's what they were now, Tommy thought. Max, Luna, Scout, and Sergeant Walker. His friends. He had heard their cries when no one else could. He had refused to give up when everything seemed impossible, and now they were safe. But this was just the beginning of the story. Tommy didn't know it yet, but saving those dogs would change his life forever. It would show him that his gift, the thing that made him different, the thing that made adults not believe him sometimes, was actually his greatest strength. The ride to the hospital was quiet except for the sound of Tommy's stomach growling. He hadn't eaten anything all day. Rosa dug in her purse and found a granola bar, which Tommy ate in 3 bites. "The dogs were so scared," Tommy said softly. "But they were brave too. They didn't give up." "Just like you," Miguel said, catching Tommy's eye in the rearview mirror. "You didn't give up either." At the hospital, they found out that Sergeant Walker was in surgery for his broken leg. He also had a concussion and severe dehydration, but he was going to be okay. The nurse said he kept asking about his dogs. "Can you tell him they're safe?" Tommy asked the nurse. "All 3 of them? Max and Luna and Scout?" The nurse smiled. "I'll make sure he knows as soon as he wakes up." Next, they drove to the emergency veterinary clinic. The moment they walked in, Tommy could hear barking from the back. not scared barking, happy barking. "That's Max," Tommy said. "I know his voice." Dr. Sarah Kim, the veterinarian, came out to meet them. She had kind eyes and gentle hands, the kind of person animals naturally trusted. "You must be Tommy," she said. "I've heard all about you. Would you like to see the dogs?" Tommy nodded eagerly. Dr. Kim led them back to a large room where 3 German shepherds were in separate but adjoining kennels. They all had IVs in their legs and bandages on their paws, but their tails started wagging the moment they saw Tommy. "Hey guys," Tommy said softly, kneeling in front of the kennels. "You're okay? You're all okay." Max pressed his nose against the kennel door. Luna whined softly. Scout, still the weakest, managed to stand up. "Their paws are pretty cut up from trying to climb the concrete, Doctor," Kim explained. "And they're all dehydrated and malnourished, but they're going to make a full recovery, thanks to you." "When can they see Sergeant Walker?" Tommy asked. "Well, that depends on when he's released from the hospital, but I promise we'll take good care of them until then." Tommy put his fingers through the kennel bars, and Max licked them gently. "I'll come visit every day," Tommy promised. "If that's okay?" "I think that would be wonderful, Doctor," Kim said. "In fact, I think it would help them recover faster. They clearly trust you." On the way home, Tommy fell asleep in the car, exhausted from the day's events. He dreamed about the dogs, but not scared dreams. Happy dreams where they were running in a field, healthy and free, with Sergeant Walker throwing tennis balls for them to chase. The next morning, Tommy woke up to voices downstairs. Lots of voices. He rubbed his eyes and looked at his dinosaur clock. 7:23 a.m. Who would be visiting this early? He crept to the top of the stairs and listened. His mother was talking to someone about interviews. His father was saying something about protecting Tommy's privacy. And there was another voice, one Tommy didn't recognize, talking about exclusive rights and compensation. "He's just a little boy," Rosa was saying. "We're not turning him into some kind of circus act." Tommy came down the stairs, still in his fresh pajamas. The torn ones from yesterday were in the trash. The living room was full of people, reporters, camera operators, and several people in suits who looked very serious. "There he is!" one reporter said, and suddenly all eyes were on Tommy. "Tommy, go back upstairs," Miguel said firmly. But Tommy was looking past all the adults, out the window, where even more news vans were parked. "Are they here about the dogs?" Tommy asked. "The story's gone viral," one of the suit-wearing people said. She had sharp eyes and a smile that didn't seem real. "Your rescue video has been viewed over 2 million times since yesterday. Everyone wants to know about the boy who saved the military hero. Dogs. They're not just military dogs," Tommy said. "They're Max and Luna and Scout. They have names." The woman's fake smile got bigger. "Exactly. That's the kind of quote people love. So authentic, so genuine." Rosa stepped between Tommy and the woman. "I think you all need to leave, now. Mrs. Martinez, your son is a hero. People want to hear his story. We could arrange for—" "Out!" Miguel's voice was louder than Tommy had ever heard it. "Everyone out of our house. Now." The reporters and suit people left, but they didn't go far. They set up camp on the sidewalk outside, cameras pointed at the house. Tommy watched from his bedroom window as more vans arrived throughout the morning. "I don't like this," he heard his mother say to his father. "He's just a baby. He doesn't need all this attention." "We'll protect him," Miguel promised. "We won't let them turn him into some kind of spectacle." But Tommy wasn't thinking about the reporters. He was thinking about Max, Luna, and Scout at the vet clinic, and Sergeant Walker at the hospital. They needed to know about each other. They needed to know everyone was okay. "Mom," Tommy said, coming back downstairs, "can we go see the dogs?" "And Sergeant Walker?" Rosa looked at the crowd of reporters outside and sighed. "We'll go out the back way." Through Mrs. Chen's yard. Mrs. Chen was more than happy to help. She was actually enjoying all the excitement. "I told them how you saved those dogs," she said to Tommy as they snuck through her backyard. "Told them you're a special boy. Always have been." At the veterinary clinic, Doctor, Kim met them at the back entrance. "I figured you might need to avoid the crowd out front," she said with a knowing smile. The dogs were looking better. Their IVs had been removed, and they were eating small amounts of food. When they saw Tommy, all 3 stood up, tails wagging. "Can I go in with them?" Tommy asked. Dr. Kim hesitated. They're military dogs, Tommy. They're trained, but they've been through trauma. Sometimes that can make dogs unpredictable. They won't hurt me, Tommy said with absolute certainty. They know I'm their friend. Something in his voice, that same certainty that had made Mrs. Chen believe him yesterday, made Dr. Kim nod. Okay, but I'm staying right here. She opened Max's kennel first. The big German shepherd stepped out slowly, favoring his bandaged paws. He walked straight to Tommy and sat down, pressing his large head against Tommy's chest. Hey, Max, Tommy whispered, wrapping his small arms around the dog's neck. You're such a good boy, such a brave boy. Max's tail thumped against the floor. Then Luna was released, and she immediately lay down next to Tommy, resting her head on his lap. Scout, still the weakest, wobbled over and curled up against Tommy's side. It's like they've known him forever, Doctor, Kim said softly to Rosa and Miguel. I've never seen anything like it. Tommy sat there with the 3 dogs for almost an hour, just being with them. Sometimes he talked, telling them about Sergeant Walker being okay. Sometimes he was quiet, just petting their fur and letting them know they were safe. Tommy, Rosa said finally, we should go see Sergeant Walker now. Visiting hours at the hospital will start soon. Tommy didn't want to leave the dogs, but he knew Sergeant Walker needed to hear about them. I'll be back, he promised them, every day until you can go home. At the hospital, they had to go through the main entrance. The reporters had figured out where they were. Cameras flashed and people shouted questions, but Miguel picked Tommy up and carried him through the crowd while Rosa cleared a path. Sergeant Walker was awake when they got to his room. His leg was in a cast, elevated on a special frame. His head was bandaged, and he had dark circles under his eyes, but he smiled when he saw Tommy. There's my hero, he said, his voice still rough but stronger than yesterday. I'm not a hero, Tommy said shyly. I just heard them crying. You did more than that, Sergeant Walker said. The firefighters told me everything. How you tried for hours to save them by yourself. How you wouldn't give up. That takes a special kind of courage. They're okay, Tommy said quickly. Max and Luna and Scout. They're at the vet, but they're eating and drinking, and their paws are getting better. Tears rolled down Sergeant Walker's face. He didn't try to wipe them away. They're all I have, he said quietly. After my last deployment, I lost everyone, my unit, my brothers. Those dogs kept me going. They gave me a reason to wake up every morning. Tommy climbed onto the chair beside the bed. Why were you driving through here? With the dogs? Sergeant Walker took a shaky breath. They were being retired. All 3 of them. They'd served their country for years, and now they were supposed to go to different homes, different states. I was transporting them to the agency that handles military dog adoptions. Different homes? Tommy's eyes widened. But they're family. They need to stay together. That's not how it works, Sergeant Walker said sadly. Military dogs get adopted individually. I was trying to accept it, but I must have been distracted. Thinking about saying goodbye. I didn't see the deer until it was too late. Swerved to miss it and hit that tree. How long were you in the woods? Miguel asked. I'm not sure. I remember the crash. I remember trying to get the dogs out because I smelled gas. Got their cages open and they ran. Then I must have passed out. Next thing I knew, this little guy was talking to me. He looked at Tommy with such gratitude it made Rosa tear up. The dogs can't be separated, Tommy said firmly. They love each other. And they love you? I'm just their handler, Sergeant Walker said. I don't have any say in where they go. But Tommy wasn't listening to excuses. He had that look on his face, the same one he'd had when he decided to save the dogs. The look that meant he was going to fix this, no matter what. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Tommy would go to school, where everyone wanted to hear about his rescue. Then Rosa would pick him up and take him to see the dogs, sneaking in the back way to avoid reporters. After that, they'd visit Sergeant Walker at the hospital. The media attention didn't die down. If anything, it got worse. Someone had posted a video taken from a news helicopter showing Tommy by the tank, trying desperately to help the dogs with just rope and buckets. The image of this tiny boy against an impossible task touched something in people. Donations started pouring into the veterinary clinic to help with the dog's care. People sent toys and treats and letters of support, but Tommy didn't care about any of that. He cared about the fact that that in 3 days, the dogs would be well enough to leave the clinic, and Sergeant Walker still didn't know where they would go. "I've been making calls," Sergeant Walker told him on the 4th day, "trying to find homes that will take them, good homes. But nobody wants to take all 3, and Max is considered too old for most families. He's 8. That's senior for a German Shepherd." "You could take them," Tommy said. Sergeant Walker's face fell. "I live in a small apartment, no yard, and with my leg, I can barely take care of myself right now. I can't give them what they need." That night, Tommy couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Max, Luna, and Scout being separated, about Sergeant Walker being alone. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. After everything they'd been through, they should be together. He got out of bed and went to his window. The reporters were gone for the night, but they'd be back in the morning. They always came back. And then Tommy had an idea. Maybe all this attention could actually help. The next morning, Tommy told his parents his plan. Rosa was hesitant, but Miguel understood immediately. "It might work," he said, "if we do it right." They called one of the reporters who had been particularly persistent but seemed genuinely nice, a woman named Jennifer who worked for the local news. She agreed to come alone, no cameras, just to talk. "I want to tell the real story," Tommy said to Jennifer when she arrived. "Not just about the rescue, about what happens next." Jennifer leaned forward, interested. "What do you mean?" "Max, Luna, and Scout are going to be separated. They're family, but they're going to different homes. And Sergeant Walker, who loves them more than anything, can't keep them because he doesn't have a house with a yard." "That's heartbreaking," Jennifer said, and she meant it. "But people could help," Tommy said. "All those people watching the news, they could help keep them together." Jennifer understood immediately. "You want to make a public appeal?" Tommy nodded. "Will you help?" The next evening, Tommy's interview aired. He sat in his living room, wearing his best shirt, looking directly at the camera with those serious eyes that had seen too much for a 5-year-old. "Max, Luna, and Scout saved people's lives in Afghanistan," he said clearly. "They're heroes. Sergeant Walker is a hero too. They love each other, but they're going to be separated forever unless someone helps. Sergeant Walker needs a house with a yard so he can keep them. He got hurt serving our country, and now he might lose the only family he has left. That's not right." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the station was flooded with calls, people offering money, houses, jobs for Sergeant Walker when he recovered. A local construction company offered to build a wheelchair ramp for any house he chose. A veterinary clinic offered free lifetime care for all 3 dogs. But the best call came from an elderly man named Robert Thompson. He owned a small farm just outside town, with a little house that had been empty since his son moved away. "I saw that boy on TV," Mr. Thompson told the news station. "If he says those dogs and that soldier belong together, then I believe him. Sergeant Walker can have the house rent-free for as long as he needs. It's got 5 acres all fenced, perfect for dogs." When Tommy heard about the offer, he insisted on meeting Mr. Thompson. The old man was tall and thin, with kind eyes and hands that shook a little. "Why would you do this?" Rosa asked him. "You don't even know them." Mr. Thompson looked at Tommy. "My grandson was a soldier, didn't make it home from Iraq, but he wrote me letters about the dogs over there, how they saved lives every day. If my boy was here, he'd want me to help. So, I'm helping." Tommy walked over and hugged Mr. Thompson's legs, which was as high as he could reach. The old man's eyes got watery, and he patted Tommy's head gently. "You're a good boy," he said. "A very good boy." The next step was telling Sergeant Walker. Tommy insisted on being the one to do it. He walked into the hospital room with a huge smile on his face. "Why do you look like you ate all the cookies?" Sergeant Walker asked, smiling despite his pain. "Because I have a surprise," Tommy said. "You know how you said you couldn't keep the dogs because you don't have a house?" "Tommy, we talked about this." "Well, now you do have a house. Mr. Thompson is giving you his farmhouse. It has 5 acres and a fence and everything. And the construction people are going to build a ramp for your wheelchair. And the vet is going to take care of the dogs for free forever. And Max and Luna and Scout can stay together with you." Sergeant Walker stared at Tommy, then at Rosa and Miguel, who were nodding and smiling. "This is real," he whispered. "It's real," Miguel confirmed. "The community has come together. Everyone wants to help. Sergeant Walker broke down completely then. Not silent tears like before, but deep, shaking sobs. Tommy climbed onto the bed, careful of the injured leg, and hugged him. "It's okay," Tommy said. "Happy tears are okay." "How?" Sergeant Walker managed to ask. "How did this happen?" "Tommy told your story on the news," Rosa explained. "People wanted to help. Lots of people. But why?" Sergeant Walker looked at Tommy. "Why would you do all this for us?" Tommy thought about it seriously. "Because you belong together. I could feel it when I first saw the dogs. They weren't just scared. They were scared for you. They love you more than anything, and you love them. Families shouldn't be separated." 2 days later, Sergeant Walker was released from the hospital. He was in a wheelchair and would be for several weeks, but he insisted on going straight to the veterinary clinic. Tommy was already there with the dogs. He'd been telling them all morning that their person was coming. They seemed to understand, pacing excitedly in their kennels. When Sergeant Walker wheeled through the door, the dogs went crazy. Barking, whining, tails wagging so hard their whole bodies shook. Dr. Kim quickly opened the kennels, and all 3 dogs rushed to their handler. Max, despite his size, tried to climb into Sergeant Walker's lap. Luna pressed against his legs, crying with joy. Scout jumped up, paws on the armrest of the wheelchair, licking every part of Sergeant Walker's face he could reach. "My boys," Sergeant Walker said through tears. "My good boys. And my Luna girl. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I crashed. I'm so sorry you were scared." The dogs didn't care about apologies. They just cared that their person was there, together, safe. Tommy stood back, watching with a huge smile. This was right. This was how it was supposed to be. "Thank you," Sergeant Walker said to Tommy over the heads of his dogs. "Thank you for everything. You saved us all." "You saved each other," Tommy said. "I just helped a little." The move to Mr. Thompson's farmhouse happened the next day. The whole community showed up to help. People brought furniture, groceries, dog beds, toys. The construction crew had already built a beautiful ramp to the front door. Mr. Thompson was there, leaning on his cane, watching everything with satisfaction. "It's good to see life in this old place again," he said to Tommy. "Houses need families. Otherwise, they're just buildings." The dogs explored their new home with wonder. 5 acres to run in, trees to sniff, a pond to drink from. But they never went far from Sergeant Walker, always circling back to check on him. "They're still worried about you," Tommy observed. "We take care of each other," Sergeant Walker said. "That's what we do." As the sun set on that first day in their new home, Tommy sat on the porch with Sergeant Walker and the dogs. Max was lying with his head on Sergeant Walker's foot. Luna was pressed against Tommy's side. Scout was chasing fireflies in the yard, but keeping the porch in sight. "I need to tell you something," Sergeant Walker said to Tommy. "About the dogs, about what they did overseas." Tommy looked up at him, curious. "Max saved 17 lives. He could find bombs that no machine could detect. His nose saved my whole unit more times than I can count. Luna was a tracker. She found 3 kidnapped soldiers who were being held by enemies. Led us right to them. And Scout, even though he's young, he saved a school full of children by alerting us to danger before anyone else noticed." "Wow," Tommy breathed. "They really are heroes." "Yes, they are. But you know what? What you did was heroic, too. You didn't have training, you didn't have equipment, you just had determination and love. That's the purest kind of heroism there is." Tommy leaned against Sergeant Walker's wheelchair. "Will you tell me more stories about them?" "Every day if you want," Sergeant Walker promised. "You're part of our pack now. You and your whole family. We don't forget pack." Over the next few weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Tommy visited every day after school. He helped with the dogs' physical therapy exercises, teaching them to trust their healed paws again. He watched as Sergeant Walker grew stronger, eventually graduating from wheelchair to crutches to walking with a cane. The media attention finally died down, though the story of the boy who saved the military dogs had spread around the world. Letters came from everywhere, kids who wanted to be like Tommy, veterans who thanked him for caring about one of their own, people who shared their own stories of special connections with animals. Tommy kept every letter in a special box, but he wasn't thinking about fame or attention. He was thinking about the way Max's tail wagged when he arrived each day. The way Luna would rest her head on his lap while he did homework on the porch. The way Scout brought him toys, wanting to play. One afternoon, about a month after the rescue, Tommy was sitting with the dogs while Sergeant Walker was at a physical therapy appointment. Mr. Thompson had brought them lemonade and was sitting in his rocking chair. "You know," the old man said, "I've been thinking about something." "What?" Tommy asked, scratching behind Max's ears. "These dogs aren't the only ones who need help. There are probably other military dogs out there, retired ones, who need homes, and other veterans who need support." Tommy looked up, interested. "This farm is big," Mr. Thompson continued. "Got that old barn that's just sitting empty. Could be fixed up. Made into a place where veterans and their dogs could come. Maybe stay for a while if they need to. Heal together." "Like a sanctuary?" Tommy asked, his eyes lighting up. "Exactly like that. But I'm too old to run something like that myself. Would need help. Would need someone who understands the connection between people and animals. Someone who knows how to listen when others can't hear." He was looking right at Tommy when he said it. "Me?" Tommy squeaked. "But I'm just a kid. You're 5 years old, and you saved 4 lives because you listened when no one else did. Imagine what you could do with help and resources and time." Tommy looked at the dogs, all peaceful and happy in the afternoon sun. He thought about other dogs who might be trapped, not in tanks, but in shelters. Other veterans who might be alone, without their 4-legged partners. Other connections waiting to be made. "We could call it warriors and wagging tails," Tommy said suddenly. Mr. Thompson laughed, a deep, warm sound. "That's perfect. Absolutely perfect." When Sergeant Walker came home from therapy, they told him about the idea. His eyes lit up in a way Tommy hadn't seen before. "I know at least a dozen veterans who are struggling," he said, "and their dogs, some are in shelters because the veterans couldn't keep them, apartments that don't allow pets, or the veterans are homeless. If we could reunite them, give them a place to stay while they get back on their feet." "We'll need money," Mr. Thompson said practically. "Renovations, food, medical care. The community will help," Tommy said confidently. "They helped before. They'll help again." And he was right. When word got out about the Warriors and Wagging Tails Sanctuary, donations poured in. The construction company that had built Sergeant Walker's ramp offered to renovate the barn for free. Dr. Kim volunteered to provide veterinary services. Local businesses offered to sponsor kennels and supplies. But the best part was when other kids from Tommy's school started volunteering to help. They couldn't all hear animals the way Tommy could, but they could fill water bowls and throw tennis balls and read stories to nervous dogs. "You started something amazing," Rosa told Tommy one evening, as they watched the sunset from Mr. Thompson's porch. The barn renovation was almost complete. 3 veterans with their dogs were already scheduled to arrive next month. "I just wanted to save Max, Luna, and Scout," Tommy said. "I didn't know all this would happen." "The best things in life are like that," Sergeant Walker said from his chair. He could walk now without the cane, though he still tired easily. "They start with one small act of kindness and grow into something beautiful." Max lifted his head and looked at Tommy with those deep, intelligent eyes. Tommy could almost hear what the dog was thinking. "Thank you, little one. Thank you for hearing us when we needed you most." "You're welcome," Tommy whispered, and Max's tail thumped against the porch boards. As the weeks turned into months, the sanctuary grew. The first residents arrived, a Marine named Carlos with his bomb-sniffing dog, Rex, who had lost his leg to an IED, but still greeted everyone with a wagging tail. Then came Ashley, an Air Force veteran with her search dog, Bella, both dealing with PTSD, but healing together. Then David, who'd been living in his car with his service dog, Duke, because no apartment would take them both. Tommy was there to greet each new arrival. He had a way of making both the humans and dogs feel immediately welcome. He'd sit with the dogs who were scared, telling them stories about Max, Luna, and Scout's rescue. He'd show the veterans around, introducing them to Mr. Thompson and Sergeant Walker, proving that things could get better. "How do you always know what they need?" Ashley asked one day, watching Tommy calm her anxious Bella just by sitting quietly beside her. "I just listen," Tommy said simply. "Not with my ears. With something else, everyone can do it if they try." The local news did a follow-up story 6 months after the original rescue. They interviewed Tommy at the sanctuary, surrounded by dogs and veterans. He was still the same serious, thoughtful boy, but there was a confidence now that hadn't been there before. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Jennifer the reporter asked. Tommy thought about it. "I want to be someone who helps. Like Sergeant Walker helps, like the dogs help, like Mr. Thompson helps. It doesn't matter what job I have, I just want to keep helping." "And what would you say to other kids who want to make a difference?" Tommy looked directly at the camera. "Listen, even when adults don't believe you, even when things seem impossible, if you know something is right, if you feel it deep inside, don't give up. Sometimes the smallest person can do the biggest things." But the story wasn't over yet. There was still more to come. Because while Tommy had saved the dogs and brought together a community, the dogs had been saving him too, in ways nobody had realized yet. It started with the nightmares. Tommy had always been a sensitive child, feeling things deeply. But after the rescue, he started having dreams. Not bad dreams exactly, but intense ones. Dreams where he could understand not just dogs, but all animals. Dreams where he could feel the fear of rabbits in the woods, the loneliness of cats in shelters, the pain of horses with untreated injuries. He didn't tell anyone at first. He'd learned that adults got worried when he talked about knowing things he shouldn't know. But the dreams got stronger, more vivid. Sometimes he'd wake up crying, not from fear, but from feeling too much. Luna was the first to notice. Sergeant Walker had started letting her spend nights at Tommy's house sometimes, a thank you to the family that had saved them all. She would curl up on Tommy's bed, and when the dreams came, she'd press against him, grounding him with her warm, solid presence. "She knows when you're upset," Rosa mentioned to Sergeant Walker one morning. "She was at his door whining before we even heard him crying last night." Sergeant Walker nodded thoughtfully. Military dogs are trained to detect all kinds of things. Bombs, drugs, cancer sometimes. But Luna's always been special. She can detect emotions. Used to alert me when one of my squad members was about to have a panic attack, before they even knew it themselves. "Tommy's been having intense dreams," Rosa admitted, "about animals in trouble. He wakes up convinced they're real." "Maybe they are," Sergeant Walker said quietly. "Maybe that's his gift. Or his burden, depending on how you look at it." Rosa wanted to dismiss it, to insist her son was just imaginative. But she'd seen too much now. The way he'd known about the dogs in the tank. The way he'd known where to find Sergeant Walker. The way animals always calmed in his presence. "What do we do?" she asked. "How do we help him?" "We teach him to use it," Sergeant Walker said. "To control it instead of letting it control him. The military teaches soldiers to handle heightened senses, to process information without being overwhelmed. Maybe Tommy needs something similar. So began Tommy's training, though they didn't call it that. Sergeant Walker taught him meditation techniques he'd learned in the military, how to breathe through intense emotions, how to create boundaries in his mind, how to help without absorbing all the pain. Mr. Thompson contributed too, teaching Tommy about nature, about the natural cycles of life and death, about how sometimes sad things were just part of the world and not problems to be solved. "You can't save every creature," he told Tommy gently as they watched a hawk catch a mouse in the field. "That mouse feeds the hawk. The hawk keeps the mouse population controlled. It's all connected." "But the dogs in the tank weren't part of nature," Tommy pointed out. "They needed help." "Exactly," Mr. Thompson said. "You have to learn the difference between natural processes and suffering that needs intervention. That's wisdom, and it takes time to develop." Dr. Kim also became part of Tommy's education. She let him shadow her at the clinic on weekends, teaching him about animal behavior and medicine. "Your empathy is a gift," she told him, "but it needs to be paired with knowledge. Understanding why animals act certain ways, what their body language means, how to help them medically. That makes empathy effective." Tommy absorbed it all like a sponge. He learned that Max's slight limp in the morning meant rain was coming, that Luna's restlessness meant someone in the sanctuary was having a bad day and needed extra support, that Scout's playfulness was sometimes a way to distract from his own anxiety. The sanctuary's first crisis came 8 months after it opened. Tommy arrived after school to find chaos. Several dogs were barking frantically, and he could hear shouting from the barn. "What's happening?" Tommy asked Mr. Thompson, who was standing by the fence looking worried. "New arrival came in bad shape," Mr. Thompson said. "A veteran named Marcus with his dog, Titan. But something's wrong. Titan won't let anyone near Marcus, not even Doctor Kim. He's got Marcus cornered in the barn and won't let him leave either. Tommy could feel it immediately. Waves of confusion and fear rolling off the barn like heat. Not aggression, but something else. Something desperate. Titan's not angry, Tommy said. He's scared. He thinks someone's going to hurt Marcus. How could you possibly know that? Asked a man in a uniform. Tommy recognized him as Officer Bradley from Animal Control. I just do, Tommy said, already walking toward the barn. Please don't hurt Titan. He's protecting. That's what he was trained to do. Tommy, wait, Rosa called, but Tommy was already at the barn door. Inside, he could see them in the corner. Marcus was a young man, maybe 25, sitting on the ground with his back against the wall. Titan, a massive Belgian Malinois, stood in front of him, teeth bared at anyone who tried to approach. Dr. Kim and Sergeant Walker were keeping their distance, trying to talk calmly to both man and dog. Hey, Titan, Tommy said softly, stepping into the barn. The dog's head snapped toward him, a growl rumbling in his chest. Tommy, get back, Sergeant Walker warned, but Tommy kept walking forward, slowly, his hands visible. I know you're scared, Tommy said to Titan. Something bad happened, didn't it? Someone hurt Marcus, and you couldn't stop it. And now, you think everyone is dangerous? The growling lessened slightly. Titan's ears, which had been flat against his head, perked up a fraction. Tommy sat down on the barn floor, still several feet away. I'm just going to sit here, okay? I'm not going to come closer. But Marcus needs help, Titan. He's sick. Can you smell it? The sadness inside him? It's making him hurt himself. Behind Titan, Marcus stirred. How does he know? He whispered, his voice broken. How does the kid know? Because I can feel it, Tommy said simply. The same way Titan can smell it. Marcus, when did you stop taking your medicine? Everyone in the barn went silent. Marcus's eyes widened. 3 weeks ago, he admitted. It made me feel numb. Dead inside. Titan's the only thing that makes me feel alive. But without the medicine, the bad thoughts came back, Tommy said. It wasn't a question. And Titan knows. He can smell the changes in your body chemistry. He thinks you're in danger, but he doesn't understand the danger is inside your head. So, he's trying to protect you from everyone else. Titan had stopped growling entirely now, his head tilted as he watched Tommy. Titan, Tommy said, Marcus needs the doctor. Not to hurt him, but to help him. The same way doctor. Kim helped Luna when her paws were bleeding. Remember Luna? She's outside. She was scared too, but the doctor made her better. Tommy had an idea. Luna, he called. Luna, come here. Moments later, Luna appeared in the barn doorway. She assessed the situation instantly and, without hesitation, walked slowly toward Titan. The two dogs sniffed each other, and Luna did something remarkable. She lay down, right in front of Titan, showing her belly. The ultimate sign of trust and submission among dogs. Titan looked confused, glancing between Luna, Marcus, and Tommy. See, Tommy said. Luna trusts the people here. They helped her when she was trapped and scared. They'll help Marcus too. But you have to let them. Slowly, so slowly, Titan stepped aside. Just a little, just enough. Dr. Kim moved forward carefully, kneeling beside Marcus. Hey there, she said gently. I'm actually a vet, but I know a bit about people medicine too. Can I check your pulse? Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to feel something. Anything. No apologies needed, Sergeant Walker said, limping forward with his cane. We've all been there, brother. That's why we're here, to help each other through the dark times. As Dr. Kim checked Marcus's vitals and called for an ambulance, just to be safe, Tommy inched closer to Titan. The dog was trembling now, the adrenaline wearing off. You did good, Tommy told him. You protected Marcus the best way you knew how. But sometimes, protection means letting others help. That's a hard lesson. Max had to learn it too. Max, hearing his name, appeared in the doorway beside Luna. He walked over to Titan with the confidence of a senior dog and simply stood beside him, a silent show of support. The ambulance arrived, and the paramedics wanted to sedate Titan so they could treat Marcus safely, but Tommy had another idea. Let me ride with him, he said. Titan will stay calm if I'm there, and Marcus needs to know Titan will be okay. The paramedics looked skeptical, but Sergeant Walker vouched for Tommy. "The kid knows what he's doing. Trust him." So, Tommy rode in the ambulance with Marcus and Titan. He sat on the floor, one hand on Titan's head, keeping the dog calm while the paramedics worked. Marcus kept looking at Tommy with wonder. "You're that kid," he said suddenly. "The one who saved those dogs from the tank. I saw it on the news in the hospital. That's why I came here. I thought if a kid could save those dogs, maybe this place could save us." "You saved yourself by coming here," Tommy said. "And Titan saved you by not letting you hurt yourself. Now the doctors will save you by getting your medicine right. Everyone saves everyone. That's how it works." Marcus started crying again, but it was different this time. Cleaner somehow, like rain after a long drought. At the hospital, Tommy stayed with Titan in the waiting room, while Marcus was admitted for psychiatric evaluation. The dog was anxious, pacing and whining, but Tommy just sat quietly, letting Titan come to him when ready. "You know," Tommy said to the dog, "Marcus is going to be okay. He just needs help remembering how to be happy. The medicine isn't perfect, but it's better than the darkness. And he has you. You're his light, Titan. You just have to let other lights in too." Titan finally settled, laying his big head on Tommy's lap. They stayed like that for 3 hours until Sergeant Walker came to pick them up. "Marcus is going to be in for a few days," Sergeant Walker explained. "But he asked me to tell you something. He said, 'Tell the kid he saved 2 more lives today.'" Tommy shook his head. "I didn't save anyone. I just translated. Titan was saying something nobody else could hear." Back at the sanctuary, word had spread about what Tommy had done. The other veterans looked at him with a new kind of respect, not as a cute kid who helped with the dogs, but as someone who understood things they couldn't put into words. "The boy's got something special," Carlos said to Mr. Thompson. "My Rex responds to him like he's never responded to anyone but me." "All the dogs do," Ashley added, "and not just dogs. Yesterday I saw him calm down that feral cat that's been living in the barn rafters. Thing won't let anyone else within 10 feet. Mr. Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Gift like that comes with responsibility. We need to make sure he doesn't burn out. He takes on a lot for someone so young." They were right to worry. As Tommy's reputation spread, more and more people brought him difficult cases. Dogs that wouldn't eat, cats that had stopped grooming, a parrot that plucked all its own feathers out, even a horse that refused to leave its stall after its owner died. Tommy helped them all, but each case took something out of him. He'd come home exhausted, barely able to eat dinner before falling asleep. His grades started slipping. He stopped playing with his friends at recess, preferring to sit alone and quiet. "We need to set boundaries," Rosa told Miguel one night. "He's still just a baby. This is too much, but how do you tell a child to stop helping when he's the only one who can?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who had first believed Tommy about the dogs, came to visit with a proposal. "In my culture," she said, sitting in the Martinez's living room, "children with gifts like Tommy's are treasured but also protected. They're taught to use their abilities wisely, not constantly, like a battery that needs recharging." "What are you suggesting?" Rosa asked. "I'd like to teach Tommy meditation, real meditation, not just breathing exercises. And my granddaughter, she's a child psychologist who specializes in gifted children. She could help Tommy process what he experiences." It was exactly what they needed. Tommy began spending an hour each day with Mrs. Chen, learning to quiet his mind, to create barriers between himself and the constant emotional input from animals around him. "You don't have to feel everything all the time," Mrs. Chen taught him. "You can choose when to open that door and when to keep it closed. It's not selfish. It's necessary." The therapy sessions with Mrs. Chen's granddaughter, Dr. Liu, were different but equally important. "Tell me about the first time you knew you were different, Doctor," Liu asked during their first session. Tommy thought about it. "I was 3. My goldfish was swimming funny. Mom said he was fine, but I knew he was dying. I could feel it, like a light getting dimmer. He died that night. And how did that make you feel?" "Sad, but also alone. Because I knew something nobody else knew, and they didn't believe me." "You're not alone now, Doctor," Liu pointed out. "Sergeant Walker believes you. The dogs believe you. Your parents believe you. But I'm still different," Tommy said quietly. "Yes, Doctor," Liu agreed. "You are. But different doesn't mean alone. It means special. It means you have something to offer that no one else can. The trick is learning to offer it without losing yourself. The combination of meditation and therapy helped. Tommy learned to turn down the volume on his gift when he needed to. He could still help animals, but he didn't have to absorb all their pain. The sanctuary continued to grow. By the 1-year anniversary of the rescue, they had helped reunite 30 veterans with their service dogs. They'd prevented 7 suicides just by providing a place where people understood that the bond between human and animal could be life-saving. A documentary crew came to film their story. They followed Tommy for a week, watching him work with the animals, seeing how even the most traumatized dogs would calm in his presence. "How do you explain what Tommy can do?" the director asked Sergeant Walker. "I don't try to explain it," Sergeant Walker replied. "Some things don't need explanation. They just need acceptance. Tommy hears what others can't. That's his truth. Whether it's a special kind of empathy or something more, doesn't matter. What matters is that he uses it to help." One day, a 1.5 years after the original rescue, Tommy was sitting by the pond with Max, Luna, and Scout. They were all older now. Max's muzzle was graying and he moved a bit slower. Luna had developed a slight cloudiness in one eye. Scout, no longer the youngest, had settled into a calm maturity. "You know what?" Tommy said to them. "We did something good, didn't we? We made a place where broken things can heal." Max woofed softly in agreement. Luna pressed against Tommy's side. Scout was watching something in the water, probably a frog. "Tommy!" Sergeant Walker called from the house. "Someone here to see you." Tommy walked back to find a woman in a military uniform standing on the porch. She had medals on her chest and kind but tired eyes. "You're Tommy Martinez?" she asked. Tommy nodded. "I'm Colonel Sarah Mitchell. I oversee the military working dog program for this region. I've been following what you've done here, what you've built with Sergeant Walker and Mr. Thompson." "It wasn't just me," Tommy said quickly. "Everyone helped. But you started it," Colonel Mitchell said. "A 5-year-old boy who heard dogs crying when no one else did. Do you know how many lives you've saved? Not just the dogs, but the veterans who found hope here?" Tommy shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I'm here to ask for your help," the colonel continued. "We have a situation at the military base. A dog named Zeus. He was the best bomb detector we've ever had, saved hundreds of lives. But something happened on his last deployment. Now he won't work, won't eat much, won't play. The veterinarians say he's physically healthy, but he's sad," Tommy finished. "Something broke inside him. Can you help?" Tommy looked at Sergeant Walker, who nodded encouragingly, then at his parents who had come out onto the porch. Rosa still looked worried whenever someone asked Tommy to use his gift, but she nodded too. "I can try," Tommy said. The next day they drove to the military base. Zeus was in a special kennel, separated from the other dogs. He was a beautiful German shepherd, bigger than Max, with a coat so black it seemed to absorb light. But his eyes were empty. Dead. Tommy sat outside the kennel for a long time, just watching. Zeus didn't move, didn't acknowledge his presence. It was like looking at a dog-shaped statue. "What happened to him?" Tommy asked the handler, Sergeant Rodriguez. "Ambush. His partner, Private Jackson, was killed right in front of him. Zeus tried to protect him, but..." Sergeant Rodriguez's voice broke. "Jackson was Zeus's whole world. They'd been together since Zeus was a puppy." Tommy closed his eyes, opening that door in his mind that Mrs. Chin had taught him to control. Immediately, he was hit with a wave of grief so profound it took his breath away. But underneath the grief was something else. Guilt. Zeus blamed himself for not saving his partner. "He thinks he failed," Tommy whispered. "He thinks he wasn't good enough. Fast enough. That's why he won't work anymore. He's punishing himself." "Can you help him?" Colonel Mitchell asked. Tommy wasn't sure. This was deeper than anything he'd encountered before. But he had to try. "I need to go in with him," Tommy said. "Alone." "That's not safe," Sergeant Rodriguez protested. "Zeus hasn't let anyone near him in weeks." "He won't hurt me," Tommy said with certainty. "He doesn't have enough energy left to hurt anyone." After much debate, they let Tommy enter the kennel. Zeus didn't even look up. Tommy sat down a few feet away and just started talking. "My friend Max is a military dog too," he said. "He saved 17 lives, but you know what? He couldn't save everyone. There was one time, Sergeant Walker told me, when Max found a bomb, but they couldn't defuse it in time. 3 soldiers were hurt. Max didn't eat for days after that. Zeus's ear twitched, just slightly. Luna, she's another friend. She found some kidnapped soldiers once, but she also lost her handler's best friend to a sniper she didn't detect. She still has nightmares about it sometimes. I can tell because she whimpers in her sleep. Zeus lifted his head just a fraction. The thing is, Tommy continued, dogs aren't supposed to be perfect. Neither are people. You did your best, Zeus. Every single day, you did your best. Private Jackson knew that. He wouldn't want you to stop living because he's gone. He'd want you to keep being the hero you are. For the first time, Zeus looked directly at Tommy. The pain in those dark eyes was almost unbearable. I know it hurts, Tommy said, tears running down his face. I know you miss him so much, it feels like you can't breathe. But there are other soldiers who need you, other lives you could save. Jackson would want you to save them. Zeus stood up slowly, painfully, like his bones were made of glass. He walked over to Tommy and did something that shocked everyone watching. He collapsed into Tommy's lap, all 90 pounds of him, and began to cry. Not whimper, not whine, but actual crying, his whole body shaking with grief that had been locked inside for weeks. Tommy held him, this massive military dog, rocking him like a baby. It's okay, he whispered. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss him, but it's also okay to keep living. They stayed like that for almost an hour. When Zeus finally stopped crying, he was exhausted but somehow lighter. He licked Tommy's face once, then stood up and walked to his water bowl. He drank for the first time in days. How? Colonel Mitchell asked, her own eyes wet. How did you do that? I didn't do anything special, Tommy said, standing up on shaky legs. I just let him know it was okay to grieve. Sometimes that's all anyone needs, permission to feel what they're feeling. Zeus began eating again that day. Within a week, he was playing with tennis balls. Within a month, he was back to training, though he would never be deployed again. Instead, he became a therapy dog for veterans with PTSD, using his own experience with loss to help others. The story of Tommy and Zeus spread through military channels. Soon, Tommy was being flown to bases around the country to work with traumatized military dogs. His parents insisted on accompanying him, and strict limits were set. No more than 1 trip per month, and Tommy had to keep up with his schoolwork. But the work was important. Tommy helped a dog named Ranger, who had become aggressive after losing a leg to an IED. He worked with a Belgian Malinois named Athena, who had stopped following commands after witnessing a massacre. Each case was different, but the core was always the same. These dogs had experienced trauma that broke something inside them, and Tommy could help them heal by understanding their pain in a way no one else could. You're doing something remarkable, Doctor, Liu told him during one of their sessions. But I want to make sure you remember that you're still a child. You deserve to have a childhood. I am having a childhood, Tommy insisted. Just a different kind. Other kids play video games. I help dogs. It makes me happy. And it did, most of the time. But there were hard days too. Days when the pain he absorbed was too much. Days when he couldn't save a dog no matter how hard he tried. Days when he wondered why he had this gift that was equal parts blessing and burden. On one particularly hard day, after losing a dog named Diesel who had simply given up on life, Tommy sat by the pond at the sanctuary crying. Max, Luna, and Scout surrounded him, their own way of providing comfort. Why couldn't I save him? Tommy asked them. Why wasn't I enough? It was Mr. Thompson who answered, having walked up quietly. Because you're not God, son. You're a little boy with a big gift, but you can't save everyone. Nobody can. Then, what's the point? Tommy asked, his voice bitter in a way that seemed wrong coming from a 7-year-old. Mr. Thompson sat down beside him, his old bones creaking. The point is that you saved Max, Luna, and Scout. You saved Sergeant Walker from losing them. You saved Zeus and Titan and dozens of others. The point is that you try. That's all any of us can do. But it hurts, Tommy whispered. Yes, Mr. Thompson agreed. Caring always hurts sometimes, but not caring hurts worse. Trust me on that. As Tommy grew older, his gift evolved. By age 8, he could sense illness in animals before symptoms appeared. By 9, he was helping design enrichment programs for zoo animals struggling in captivity. By 10, he was consulting with wildlife rehabilitators about the emotional states of injured wild animals. The sanctuary had become a model for others around the country. Warriors and Wagging Tails had inspired similar programs in 15 states. Sergeant Walker had become a national advocate for veteran animal therapy programs. Mr. Thompson had lived to see his farm become a place of healing for hundreds. When Mr. Thompson passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 87, he left the farm to Sergeant Walker and Tommy jointly, with instructions that it always remain a sanctuary. His funeral was attended by over 300 people and nearly as many dogs. "He gave us a place to heal," Sergeant Walker said at the service. But more than that, he believed in the power of connection. Between human and animal, between veteran and civilian, between a little boy with a gift and 3 dogs who needed saving. Tommy spoke too, though he could barely get the words out through his tears. "Mr. Thompson taught me that land isn't just property, it's possibility. Every acre of this farm has seen someone's worst day become their first day of getting better. He didn't just give us land, he gave us hope." Max, Luna, and Scout were at the funeral too. They were old now, moving slowly, their muzzles white with age. But they still stayed close to Tommy, still looked at him with those knowing eyes that had first connected with his from the bottom of that tank. 5 years after the rescue, on a quiet Sunday morning, Max passed away. He went peacefully, lying in his favorite sunny spot on the porch, with Sergeant Walker holding his head and Tommy stroking his fur. He was 13, ancient for a German shepherd, especially one who had lived such a hard life. "He waited," Sergeant Walker said through his tears. "He waited until he knew we'd all be okay without him." Tommy felt Max go, felt that bright spirit slip away like a sigh. But alongside the grief was gratitude. Max had lived 5 years longer than he would have if Tommy hadn't heard those cries. 5 years of love and peace and sunny afternoons. Luna followed 6 months later, and Scout 8 months after that. Each loss was devastating, but also a reminder of what they had all built together. The sanctuary continued, filled with new dogs and new veterans, new connections and new healings. Tommy, now 11, stood at the memorial they'd built for Max, Luna, and Scout. 3 stones by the pond, with their names and the words, heroes, friends, family. A new arrival had come to the sanctuary that day. A young veteran named Mariah with her service dog, a German shepherd named Hope. The dog was skittish, traumatized from an IED explosion that had injured both her and Maria. "Can you help her?" Maria asked Tommy, her voice small and scared. Tommy looked at Hope, opening the door in his mind just enough to feel what the dog was feeling. Fear, yes. Pain, definitely. But underneath it all, the same thing he'd felt in Max, Luna, and Scout all those years ago. The desperate desire to be understood, to be saved, to be loved. "Yes," Tommy said simply. "I can help." As he knelt beside Hope, speaking in that soft voice that animals always responded to, Tommy felt the presence of Max, Luna, and Scout. Not literally. He didn't believe in ghosts. But their legacy, their story, lived on in every animal he helped, every connection he facilitated, every life he saved. The little boy who had heard dogs crying in an empty water tank had become something more. Not a hero. He still rejected that label. Not a miracle worker. He knew his limitations, but something important nonetheless. A bridge between species, a translator of pain, a beacon of hope for those who had no voice. The sun was setting over the sanctuary, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere, a dog barked, not in distress, but in joy. Somewhere, a veteran laughed for the first time in months. Somewhere, healing was happening, and Tommy Martinez, now 11 years old but still with those same serious, knowing eyes, continued his work. Not because he had to, but because he could. Because when you can hear cries that others can't, you have a responsibility to answer them. The sanctuary's phone rang. Another case, another animal in need, another chance to make a difference. Tommy answered it, as he always did, with the same words, warriors and wagging tails. How can we help? Because helping was what they did. It's what Max, Luna, and Scout had taught them. It's what Mr. Thompson had made possible. It's what Sergeant Walker demonstrated every day. And it's what a 5-year-old boy had started when he heard crying from an empty water tank and refused to give up until those cries were answered. The story of Tommy and the 3 German shepherds had become legend in their community and beyond. But for Tommy, it wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about the next animal who needed help, the next veteran who needed healing, the next connection waiting to be made. As night fell over the sanctuary, Tommy made his rounds, checking on all the residents, human and animal alike. In the barn, Titan was curled up with Marcus, both sleeping peacefully. In the small cottage, Maria was reading to Hope, the dog's head resting on her lap. In the main house, Sergeant Walker was teaching a new arrival how to work with his service dog, patience and understanding in every word. This was what saving 3 dogs had become. This was the ripple effect of one small boy's refusal to ignore suffering. This was the power of connection, of empathy, of love that transcended species. Tommy stood on the porch where Max used to lie, looking out over the sanctuary. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl hooted. Somewhere, a dog dreamed of running free. Somewhere, healing continued its quiet work. "Thank you," Tommy whispered to the night, to Max, Luna, and Scout, to Mr. Thompson, to everyone who had believed in him when he was just a small boy with an impossible story about dogs in a tank. The wind rustled through the trees, and for just a moment, Tommy could swear he heard an answer. 3 distinct barks, faint but clear, saying what they'd always said: "We're family. We saved each other, and the saving never really ends." Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new animals in need, new veterans seeking hope, new connections to be made. But tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The boy who heard what others couldn't had become a young man who helped others hear it too. And in a world that often seemed deaf to suffering, that was its own kind of miracle. The sanctuary stood as proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, a 5-year-old boy refusing to give up on 3 trapped dogs, could grow into something that changed hundreds of lives. It was proof that connection transcended species, that love was stronger than trauma, and that healing was always possible if someone was willing to listen. And Tommy Martinez would keep listening for as long as there were cries to hear and connections to be made, because that's what Max, Luna, and Scout had taught him. That's what Mr. Thompson had believed. That's what Sergeant Walker lived every day. That's what love looked like when it refused to give up. The story that had started with crying from an empty water tank had become something so much bigger. But at its heart, it remained simple: a boy, 3 dogs, and the unshakable belief that every life was worth saving. And that belief, more than any special gift or ability, was what made all the difference. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the power of connection between humans and animals, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that remind us of the good in this world, and comment below. Have you ever experienced a special connection with an animal? We'd love to hear your story. Remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. Like Tommy showed us, you just have to listen, believe, and never give up.